Greetings. Shout out to all of you wonderful deep divers. Everybody who's diving deep, we have a very, very special guest. Truly an honor to have the phenomenal Billy Carson on the live stream. Thank you so much, Billy, for being here. Thank you so much. So before we even start, I just want to go through the breakdown of who Billy Carson is. For all those that don't know, Billy Carson is the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge and the best-selling author of the Compendium of the Emerald Tablets and Woke Doesn't Mean Broke. Mr. Carson is also the founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge TV, a new conscious streaming TV network, the co-host of Biohack, Your Best Life, and is an expert host on Deep Space, a new original streaming series by Gaia. This series explores a secret space program revealing extraordinary technologies and their potential origins. Mr. Carson also serves as an expert host on Gaia's original series, Ancient Civilizations, in which a team of renowned scholars deciphers the riddles of our origins and pieces together our forgotten history documented in monuments and texts around the world. Mr. Carson appreciates the dedication and hard work it takes to accomplish great things. Recently, Mr. Carson earned the certificate of science with an emphasis on neuroscience at MIT and has a certificate in ancient civilization from Harvard University. Among his most notable achievements, Billy is a CEO of First Class Space Agency based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Specifically, his space agency is involved in research and development of alternative propulsion systems and zero-point energy devices. Billy, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And like I say, we got a whole lot to talk about. Deep divers have been ready for this. They're excited for this because so much is happening all around the world, especially with a topic that you're really into, UFOs. We saw the UFO land in someone's backyard in Las Vegas. I covered that topic, and this actually broke headlines, broke news stories all around the world, going viral. And what is your take on that whole event? Was that real? Was that fake? What did you make of that?
I tend to think that event was real, just because after digging deep into it, analyzing it, listening to some of the policemen that showed up live on the scene in their testimony to see what they were actually asking the neighbors in the neighborhood and the shock that they all had. Multiple people from multiple different locations around the same vicinity of the situation all saw something extremely similar. So to me, that seems to be some type of circumstantial evidence. We're looking at a situation where multiple people, multiple perspectives, different ages, different, ethnic types all saw the same thing. So that led me to believe that there was some truth to this event, that something did happen. Exactly or specifically what, nobody really truly knows. It's a little bit ambiguous even to them, but it seemed like some type of a hominid or humanoid had come out of a craft that was downed and was walking around. Now, if you look at some of the stuff I've been working on with Dr. Stephen Greer, we both hypothesized that the U.S. military, and based on also some of his own accounts from people that have disclosed information to him from former military, that they've been using scalar weapons to bring these things down, which is a form of radar, something that actually was embedded into the radar way back in the 1940s. And they found that it had this disorientation effect to some of these UFO craft and forces them to crash because they lose navigation ability. Could this have been the same thing, or maybe a more advanced scalar weapon? Could this have been brought down on purpose? And then this being, escaped and ran through a neighborhood? It's very possible.
Definitely. And I got to say a shout out to you, because I first found out about your work back in 2015 on Instagram, and
Wow.
Forbidden Knowledge was the most viral page, spreading consciousness into the mainstream. What does forbidden knowledge mean to you? What does that represent?
Well, forbidden knowledge for me, it represents knowledge that isn't completely off limits or completely secreted or top secret, but that knowledge that is hidden. In other words, they have compartmentalized knowledge so much and broken into so many separate pieces. It's hard for people to pull all the pieces of the puzzle together and connect the dots, especially when you're talking about over potentially thousands of years or decades or hundreds of years at a time. So I wanted to be able to come forward with a lot of the information that I have been studying and learning over decades. When I saw I can connect the dots between so many different things from so many eons ago up until the current day, and give people a better understanding of what's happening, what's going on, what the potential of the human consciousness is, who we are as people on this planet and in the universe. And so that's what forbidden knowledge is for me. It's an eye-opening, awakening picture puzzle creating system that allows people to see what the final picture is going to actually be.
And I'm a deep diver. Do you feel that it's always been forbidden knowledge? Or do you think that we're in the age of ignorance and people are not having the knowledge? But do you think there was a time where people had far more knowledge than we have right now?
Absolutely, no doubt. We're living in a cyclical civilization. We rise and fall. And we know that we have had many rises and falls of civilization just based on the ancient temples and pyramids and structures that have been left, the megalithic structures left all over the planet that we can't duplicate today. So we know at some point in the distant past, there was a high level of knowledge. There was definitely several golden ages that existed on this planet. And we were most likely a part of those previous golden ages. And so now we went down to a fallen state, but we're rising back up toward another golden age. But it's a long, hard, arduous process. Right now, I anticipate, or I speculate that we're probably in the Tetra Yuga, which is the beginning of a new silver cycle as we head into the age of Aquarius. We've already passed through the bronze and the gold. We're heading back, bronze, and now we're heading into the silver, heading back toward a golden age. So it happens. It's a part of the rise and falls of civilizations. And the knowledge back then, eons ago, was significantly more intense in terms of spirituality, in terms of knowing the power inside of oneself, in terms of just the growth of the species itself, not only on Earth, but in my opinion, throughout the entire universe. I think humanoids, like humans, a Homo sapien, a bipedal hominid, you can cut in half and have two equal parts of the body that have hands or appendages that can manipulate the environment. I think that's abundant in the universe. And I truly do believe that we're all related in some way, shape, or form. And that these ages allowed us to even reach out to the stars. And so now we've just got to reclaim our true selves, understand who we truly are, and reclaim our birthright, which is our right to literally, make contact with our star brothers.
Definitely. And what I love about your work is that you're so open-minded. You speak with so many different people from, different fields and different areas. And something I always say, it's hard coming out and speaking about this. What was the journey like for you just to, tell your family about UFOs and aliens? A lot of people want to come out, but they're seeing it, but they don't want to be called crazy. They don't want to be called like, oh, that woo-woo stuff. A lot of people like Neil Tyson deGrasse talks about how if we have UFOs, there are 8 billion cell phones. That's his, rebuttal. Someone would have captured an alien, So
right.
How do you deal with people who sometimes say, actually snap out of it? There's no science around this.
Well, it's pretty interesting. It's been a very long journey to answer the first part of the question. I mean, you're talking about going from me all the way back to the 1970s when I saw a UFO flying over my backyard. And that's what got me into this whole thing. That's what set me down this entire path that I'm on right now. Seeing that object, that elliptical shaped object, glowing metal, go across the horizon in my backyard in seconds instead of minutes, because on regular plane, we live by the Opa-locka airport. It would take minutes for it to clear the horizon. This thing went straight across. It came back, stopped, hovered much lower, and then just took off the way it came in. The next day, I went and started researching aerospace technology out of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Google didn't exist back then. So I had to go to the library at Rainbow Park Elementary and grab down those encyclopedias. I started studying swept wing, delta wing, ballistics, intercontinental ballistics, all different types of machinery that the military had access to that was already in these books, but nothing that I saw in there was like what I saw in the sky. And that set me down a whole new path of research and investigation. I was intrigued by the technology that I was able to research in those encyclopedias, and I continued to research aerospace technology for many, many years. But that set me down the path. And, it's very difficult. Like when I saw that, I was running around with a lot of excitement, and I ran in the house and I told my mother, and honestly, she took it very well. She was like, yeah, there's advanced beings. She didn't say aliens. She said, there's advanced beings. There's been civilizations on this planet with advanced beings going back thousands of years. Now imagine, this is 1977. She even told me I need to go to Machu Picchu because she said that these advanced beings used to live at the tops of mountains in Peru, which I finally got a chance to go to Machu Picchu a few years back. And that's why I dedicated my first book to my mother. So it's just really amazing that she accepted it that well. But I had two other friends that I could talk to. We would hide in the bushes to talk about this stuff because it was too dangerous to talk about it with the other kids because they'll pick on you and start a fight even. So we would talk in the bushes about, were they coming from the ocean? Were they coming from space? What do we think they were? Were they aliens and everything else? And then over time, I saw it from hiding in the bushes to exchanging VHS tapes with UFO conspiracies on them, to exchanging cassette tapes, to exchanging CDs, to exchanging DVDs, to going to web forums, then to websites and blogs, now mainstream TV, right? And now you have on mainstream news, former military and current military coming forward saying these things are real. So I've seen this progression over time, making it a lot easier for me to talk about this stuff over time. But in the beginning, it was like walking through life completely alone, being, having all this information in my head, not being able to express it or speak about it. I had a little bit of hope though. I had studied, the Indian Hopi prophecies, and I had learned that they believed that their world will be connected by a World Wide Web and information will travel around the world instantaneously. And when I read that prophecy, I literally jumped for joy because I realized that if I can stay alive long enough, when that era came, when that time came, my information is going to get to the world. And that's exactly what happened. I'm fortunate that I made it to the time frame. I remember seeing that first commercial was 1997. It was just a black screen and it said IBM.com. I was like, .com, and that's the commercial? When I went to the bookstore, which I frequented, I pulled up .com. So what's this .com? They said, the books are over there. Oh, HTML, web, internet, blah, blah, blah. That's when I realized the web had arrived. And I knew from that moment, my knowledge was going to spread worldwide, globally.
Phenomenal. Because right now people are ready for the awakening with thanks to you and other people doing great work. I've seen your Instagram videos and photos of you in Egypt, and you had a smile on your face like, hey, I'm happy to be back home. And the whole world is fascinated with Egypt because you have the emerald tablets. You have so much wisdom. Even in the pyramids, they don't know how they were built. Why do you feel the ancient Egyptians were so advanced, way ahead of their time? What did they have? Were they hybrids? I mean, how come they were able to build a pyramid we can't even build today?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you look into the ancient past or the emerald tablets of Thoth, which I wrote my book about, right? Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, he called himself an Atlantean priest king. Nobody made up that name for him. That was the name that he called himself. And how do we know this? Because he wrote that down in his own tablets that he authored himself. So we know that these advanced beings were part of this Atlantean civilization that was on this planet. Well, after the Great Flood, he talks about going back to the land of Kim, going back, which means he had been there before. And he says, rebuilding the civilization to a high level. So what that tells us is, there was already a high level civilization eons ago, before the Great Flood that we know about in all the books from all around the world. Everybody all these indigenous cultures all speak of this Great Flood that happened. So it's pretty interesting, right? And so we now go, okay, wow, interesting. Now he says that he brought his crew to help rebuild this civilization. So they're teaching the people there. So not only are they advanced beings that had dwelt in the land of Kim prior, matter of fact, he ruled over the land of Kemet for 16,000 years, according to the ancient Egyptians. But now he's got a crew of people, right? Maybe his master architect team that's also enlightening and teaching this information to the people of the area, and teaching them how to build based on their construction techniques, which is obviously super advanced. I don't believe that aliens particularly picked up blocks or created the blocks and put everything in place all on their own. Human beings were heavily involved. There's a lot of proof that they were heavily involved in the construction. Like for the Great Pyramid, we have records of the workers. They would get paid salaries. They had insurance in case they got injured on the job. All these records were left behind. And they weren't slaves, by the way. So it's pretty interesting. So they in some way were being guided and taught the technique, and they were given the tools needed to be able to construct these pyramids. And then what he says is, after they build up Giza and rebuild the land of Kem to a high civilization, which means golden age, he then told his people, the crew that came with him, to go around the planet and duplicate what we did here. So that's why when you go anywhere on the earth, you're going to see similar structures, similar construction techniques, megalithic blocks, and all the alignments are going to be very similar, because it was the same master architect that taught the world basically how to build these structures.
Phenomenal. I've been to Egypt. I was in Nora as well. A lot of people always ask right now, where is the world heading? We've just come out of a pandemic. Now the Pentagon have confirmed UFOs landing in people's backyards. Is Independence Day on the way? It seems like everything they put in the movies, because someone just said, Steven Spielberg had a film called Player One. And Player One was a film where people go into the metaverse. And Apple just released Apple Vision Pro. It's a headset, and basically you can have 100-foot screen. This is crazy. When we talk about this, is there something that the music industry knows, the entertainment industry know, Hollywood know, that they already know that they're here? And is there technology we don't even know about that's already here, that's far more advanced than your iPhone, for example? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
And did the ancient Egyptians have even greater technology than, where did it all go? Where did it all disappear?
Yeah.
Have people got it? Because I know Nikola Tesla had a lot.
Yeah, he discovered some of it. He figured out how to act or to rebuild some of it. But those are all great questions. If you look at what's going on right now with the technology for entertainment, they discovered that these technologies, first of all, they discovered that the human brain is easily fooled, right? They understand that we're living in a matrix. We're living in a fractal holographic matrix of light. We're literally living in a light matrix, and everything in this universe is made of light, including our own bodies. We look at our body, I look at my arm and go, no, this is a dark brown arm. It's a real arm. I can feel it. I can hold on to my fingers. What we don't realize is atoms are 99.9999% empty space, and that the only thing that's stopping my other hand from going through this hand is repulsion of the electromagnetism that's repelling the electrons. That's all it really is. And we never really ever touch anything. So they realize that we're living in a light matrix because also of wave particle duality. We know that everything exists as a wave before it collapses into what we consider to be solid matter. And they even caught the wave of light converting into solid matter about 4 or 5 years ago in a laboratory. It made physics.org. It was like the image or the photo of the year, because they caught a wave converting into a particle right in the in-between state, letting us know that everything exists as a wave of potentials before it becomes solid in this universe. Now, fast forward into the video games, they know this science. They understand this science extremely well. And so what they did was say, wow, if we can create technology that will allow people to escape their current environment without actually physically going anywhere, we'd have them hooked, because we can put them in any environment we want. We can even send subliminal message of any type of any marketing that we want to. We can give them an endless amount of travels and worlds to see and games to play, and they can sit down in a chair and never actually have to move. And so they saw a great money-making opportunity, which is why they dove deeper into that whole arena of technology. But now, where does that technology originally come from before mainstream got it to market it to us? It came from the military. So you go and check the military industrial complex, you discover that they are not 50, 60, 70, not even 100 years ahead of us. They are about 300 years ahead of us technologically. So whatever you can think of or dream up, they've already done. I mean, they literally have done so much. And a lot of these unacknowledged black budget projects with no congressional oversight are tucked away in bases and so forth, hidden around the world where nobody can get the general public can't get access to them. And because they took these projects and put them into corporate contracts, we can't use a Freedom of Information Act to request what these projects are that all of our trillions of dollars have gone to. So they're hiding them away. And what do? They try to weaponize them. That's the first and foremost thing they want to do with any tech. They discovered that there's ways that they can connect people to these kind of devices, these virtual devices, and they can have something called the Avatar Project, which I talk about in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, where a soldier sitting in a bunker 50 to 100 feet underground in America can control a field robot through a symbiotic consciousness link and a virtual display on his own eyeballs, like the one you're talking about, Apple just came out with, and maneuver and navigate through the field and collect intel and everything else, and never actually physically be at harm or risk or get injured or hurt. If the robot is destroyed, the conscious link is severed and the soldier's okay. So a lot of this tech already existed long before Apple released it to the public. What you're seeing when they release this tech to the public is a trickle-down effect now that things that have been out maybe for 30, 40, 50 years maybe. Look at the SR-71 Blackbird, right? 4 or 5 times the speed of sound. That thing was built in the 1960s, you know?
Right.
And so we're talking about the technology that they have. It's incredible. It's mind-blowing. They learned how to make a warp bubble in a laboratory about 4 years ago, which means they know how to make a warp drive, which means they can travel faster than the speed of light if they want to.
So the greater question, so a great question I have for you is that Elon Musk went on Joe Rogan and said, you're already a cyborg. And a lot of people are already cyborgs. It's already too late. That's why they call it Apple. The forbidden fruit has already been eaten. But I want to ask you this. The DNA is a biological internet. You know, once upon a time before iPhones, people could teleport, they could use telekinesis and all of these things. Do you feel that it's good to go further into technology in the metaverse, or do you think we should be working on our own internal technology, which is the DNA, unlocking the junk DNA, finding out what we can do with our own body? You know, there are people out there who can do phenomenal things with their minds, but it's just that people are utilizing this technology and their mind is atrophying, you know? So do you think we should go further into technology or pull back and say, hey, let's find out what this human body can do? You know, there was a film called Lucy, Scarlett Johansson, and she's literally, becoming superhuman. And we all have this ability once we unlock that junk DNA. What do you feel about that? Yeah,
I love that you asked this question because there is no such thing as junk DNA, as you know. Obviously, you're using it because that's what people can relate to, but that the DNA is actually not junk. It's just disconnected nodes in the human body. And this goes back into the Sumerian tablets, into the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation and the Epic of Atrahasis, ancient texts, thousands and thousands of years old, where they talk about genetically modifying people and altering our genetic and DNA and RNA structure to make us into workers. And why would they have to do that? Well, our cousins that were here before we became Homo sapiens sapien were much more in tune spiritually. They probably had the capability of telekinesis, telepath, psychic capabilities, and we lost a lot of that in the process of becoming Homo sapiens sapien. Right now, what's happening is we have taken technology as a crutch. It's an absolute crutch that is atrophying our mind and our brains. And, you know, what's interesting is the more we rely on smartphones, the dumber we get. You know, I remember, being in school in the 1970s, 1980s. There was I graduated long before 90, right? So there's no Google, there's no internet, there's none of this stuff. And so when you took a test, you actually had to know how to figure out the answer. You had to know how to solve a real problem and come up with an answer, right? What is X? Well, this is how I get to X. Now these kids, they have the phones, they got the watches, they got all this, and they got the Chat GPT, but they still fail classes. They still don't get all A's. They still can't get straight A's with all this information in the palm of their hands. Why is that? The mind is becoming atrophied. And technology has turned us into a civilization of people that want instantaneous millisecond knowledge. If you ever look at one of the posts you'll make on social media right? I look at some of my posts, they're 1 minute reels, right? People will comment under the bottom as if they were supposed to get a complete understanding of what that 1 minute edited clip was supposed to tell them, instead of going and looking up the keywords and learning about what it means for themselves and trying to get a full education literally in 1 minute. What took me probably 20 years to learn, they want to get it in 1 minute. And so this is all part of the process. We have gotten completely imbalanced in the civilization with technology versus working on our own internal selves, going to inner space, right? Going to higher levels of thought and consciousness, reconnecting our own DNA, tapping into our natural psychic abilities, tapping into our telekinesis capabilities, and all these things that are innately part of our sensory perception capability, navigating the earth by magnetic fields, which we know we have the magnetite crystals still in our head, billions of magnetite crystals in our heads, and we can't even sense the magnetic field of the earth. We should be able to navigate. Forget GPS. We don't need GPS. It's in here already. But we've lost it because why? The technology has become a significant crutch for us. Once we begin to wean ourselves off of tech and get to a more of a balanced, harmonious situation, then all of a sudden, a lot of these natural gifts will begin to reappear. Some people already have them. Some people are more sensitive than others. But the majority, the masses, will begin to reconnect with their true power in their own selves and begin to realize who they truly are. And all the powers that they thought were superpowers are just natural powers that we innately already have. We just have been ignoring them or been disconnected because everything relies on technology. It's just an imbalance. We have to get to a homeostasis where there's a certain level of balance in civilization. And until we do that, you're going to continue to see, unfortunately, you're going to continue to see the younger generation continue to get lower and lower IQs, because you just can't rely on Google searches and Chat GPT for all your answers. You have to know how to actually solve real problems to make it or to continue to build this world in the way that it needs to go. So we do have to find a way to get to some kind of balance, because those powers are already in us. And every single person needs to learn how to take a journey to inner space, brain heart coherence, meditation techniques, eating clean, working on themselves, taking themselves out into nature, reconnecting with the earth. All those things are very important.
I want to definitely give you your flowers, because what you've done is something truly groundbreaking. You've taken something which was in people's living rooms and you've shared it with millions of people all around the world. A lot of people mention your name. They bring up your name, and you're a household name right now. How do you feel? How do you feel hacking the matrix? Because you're almost like a glitch in the matrix. You've made forbidden knowledge as mainstream as Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and Drake and all of these things. You're there. So how do you feel about getting this information into the mainstream, and how did you do it? Because I watched your journey, and it's amazing how just seeing the growth from year after year, how were you able to get this information to so many people?
Thank you. It's been a long journey, as you already know. Like you said, you witnessed it, you saw it through a lot of the ups and downs, and accounts getting deleted and everything else, getting suppressed, getting, algorithms coming in and taking over your whole feed. Now you got to fight algorithms and everything else. And, what I found was the key was just to be consistent. I said, if I can just be consistent, and if I can make myself omnipresent, in other words, if I can be everywhere all at once, where anybody looks on any platform, anywhere they look, any blog, anywhere, every TV, wherever they turn, they have to hear my voice. They have to hear what I have to say. They have to see me speak. And so I made that my main goal. And I said, if I can achieve omnipresence, then the word will continue to get out. And fortunately, on some level, I've been able to do that. There's literally almost nowhere I can go that I nobody doesn't know me. I've been out in the outback, 8 miles in the middle of the woods, and people go, "Oh my God, forbidden knowledge!" So it's been a success. It worked out. The feeling is like a certain sense of relief, not complete relief, but like, okay, this is starting to work. Like I feel I'm really at the beginning of what it could potentially be, because my ultimate goal is to make forbidden knowledge common knowledge. That's really what I want it to be. I want to be the talks at work, around the water cooler, to be about forbidden knowledge and not about, Kardashians and gossip about what happened in the neighborhood. I want people to kind of scoff at the people that are bringing up gossip and talking about people and be like, hey, man, that's not what we talk about. We're talking about like real stuff here. I mean, those conversations isn't for this group. And they start excluding people for talking foolishness and let people in who are talking about raising consciousness. And I think that's really the ultimate goal. But I see that we are on that trajectory, so I'm very pleased.
Definitely. And touching back on UFOs, the Pentagon have already confirmed it. It's a conversation where a lot of people have seen them themselves. There's a big debate right now. Is the Earth flat? Is the Earth round? I have my intro around glow. People say, Ralph, the Earth is always flat. Some people say it's a holographic universe. There was a video circulating of UFOs going into the ocean. And during that Ocean Gate fiasco, the tragic event with Ocean Gate, they went down to the bottom of the ocean. James Cameron went down to, the Challenger Deep, very, very far down the ocean. And they say actually that the ocean holds more mysteries than space. What can you tell us about the infinite waters? What's below the ocean? Because a lot of people are looking up when some people say you got to be looking down the ocean. Because they said UFOs are going down into the ocean. So what's down there? Because we've only explored 5% of of the whole ocean. So we don't know anything about the ocean. People are looking at space, but what about the ocean? I mean, it just sucks people up.
There's so much. Oh, man, listen. There's so much going on in the ocean. That's a whole 10-hour podcast by itself. Let's check this out. Go back to Christopher Columbus when he was getting lost in the middle of the ocean. He didn't really discover anything. People were already here. But when he was out there, one thing he noted in his captain's log, which nobody can doubt, can't refute this. He wrote down in his captain's log that during the sailing at night in complete darkness, now there's no lights, there's no light pollution back then. This bright light in this disc came up out of the ocean in front of the ship and sped off into the sky until it disappeared. Now, what in the world can be lighting up the sky, coming up out of the ocean and be a disc in the 1400s other than a UFO? He saw an actual UFO and documented in his captain's log. Captains don't just write random things in their log because they know their logs are going to be reviewed. So for him to write that into his log, it was a very significant incident that happened. And it means to me that he saw a UFO. And that's just one going back, then the further back you go, the more UFOs you discover. Alexander the Great, he kept in his logs while taking over the majority of the world. These UFOs would go ahead of him in battle. These objects, these discs would fly ahead of him and help him defeat his enemies. Why would he write that down? Right? So all of a sudden, we're starting to see this track record of these entities or these beings in some way engaging mankind. More recently, we know, like you say, the Pentagon. We know that I went to the recent press club with Dr. Stephen Greer, and people were coming forward testifying to what has happened at military bases and private corporations that are experimenting with ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles. But go back to 2001, the original press club that he did, 1.0, when he was aired on CNN worldwide at once in the afternoon that day, when these former military nuclear physicists, nuclear scientists, and the guys with the codes to the nukes, like the guy spoke, who testified, who actually programs the nukes and said UFOs showed up at the flight. A flight is a nuclear silo in the middle of nowhere. Showed up at the flight in broad daylight and deactivated the nuclear codes. So again, here we have more evidence of them engaging mankind. So the hardest job to get in the world is a guy who knows the codes to the nuclear bombs. Like the guy who knows how to activate nukes, probably one of the hardest jobs to get, right? So when this guy talks, you got to listen. You have to say, okay, I got to listen to this guy. This guy activates nukes for a living. When he says that a UFO shows up and deactivates them, so we see this track record of aliens of some type, whether they're coming from the ocean or coming from space. Maybe they are from the ocean. Maybe they want to protect this planet because maybe they live here too, along with us. You see? And so, like I said earlier, when I was a kid, we were speculating, did they come from the ocean? That was in the 1970s. Like, did they come from the ocean? Maybe they live in the ocean. When you're flying from America over to the UK, if you want to, I get nice airplanes with the big screen so I can see the scan of the bottom, because I like to just watch the plane. They give you like the radar scan of the ocean. And sometimes you'll see structures or things that look like structures at the bottom of the ocean as you're flying across the Atlantic. And you're like, wow. So I've screenshot some and save them, take pictures of them. Like, what is this stuff underneath the ocean? There's so much there. And we know off the coast of Florida, where I'm living now, that there's actually pyramids off the coast of Florida between here and Cuba. And they've been discovered and well documented. They've been scanned and everything else. There's radar scans of them that's available online. They've been on TV shows. They've been on every major TV show talking about ancient civilizations. So we know there was a culture, super advanced culture at some point, and we know that there's a lot of things under the water that we can't explain, and maybe even, just maybe, they're still there.
Definitely. I mean, a lot of people, just playing devil's advocate, might say, okay, so how is this going to help me pay my bills, Billy? How is this going to put food on my table? How is this going to help me in my everyday life? I've got problems at home right now. So how is this information going to help people in a practical sense? People who have never heard of this, who have never heard of this information, who are like, okay, and how is this going to affect me? Why should I care to know about it? Is there something I need to know about?
Yeah. Well, you see, the past is prologue, meaning what happened in the past is bound to happen in the future. So if you go back, to every 1,000 years from today, you'll see that civilization was having the same exact problems and issues that we're living in right now. And we keep going into this cycle of this rise and fall. We keep going into the cycle of this capitalistic system during the fall, where it's all about profiting and making money and riches, right? And keeping the boot on the neck of the masses, letting a few people through here and there, but the majority of the people will suffer while a very small group prosper. And so they say, well, how is this going to help me pay my bills? Well, the fact you shouldn't even have bills. This is how it's going to help you. See, exactly. The knowledge of this information, when the masses really get it, they're going to do one thing and one thing only: unite as one. All 8 billion people unite as one on this planet and realize we've been fooled, we've been lied to this whole time. And there's a great, vast history behind us that can show us and taught us how to get to a golden age. We are now not going to play the game of the elites, the 100 families that control the entire planet. 8 billion people being controlled by 100 families. That is a real sin. When we've come to realize that we got to stop playing their game, that there's so much knowledge and wisdom and understanding. We've gone to inner space. We've journeyed. We've now dropped the divide and conquer tax. We know that we're supposed to unite as one, and we're supposed to do one thing. Say, no, we're not playing your game anymore. And when we do that, this world is going to change for the better. Jobs will begin to disappear. We have technology that can take over the majority of the jobs. And the other ones that are there, people will work because they enjoy or they're passionate about what they do. Monetary systems will completely change. Your status in civilization will be how good you are at what you do and how you help others, not how much money you can make off of something. And AI and other technologies will become balanced and will take on the burden of mankind versus AI taking your jobs and robots taking your jobs, and you still got bills to pay. It shouldn't be that way. There should be no job. There should be no bills to pay. If something takes your job, all your debt should be removed as well. So this is the kind of civilization we have to build to, but it takes first an understanding of where we came from, how we got there, what beings are out there, what kind of technologies have been stolen from these beings, which I believe has happened, and reverse engineered and trickled down to us as advanced technology, and what information and technologies have been suppressed, like 0-point energy devices, the ability to have engines that combust but run on hydrogen, not gas, and not electric, because electric cars are the absolute worst thing for the planet. So all these suppressed technologies that are there will then become released to the public as we demand what we own, and then we will free the burden of man, and there will be no interest rates and mortgage payments and bills. You'll be free to experiment and enjoy life, do arts, crafts, travel the world. If you want to have a job, there'll be plenty of things for you to do that you're passionate about and enjoy doing. And that's the way life should be.
Definitely. I mean, there are cars that run on water. Jack Fresco, the founder of the Venus Project, talked about the resource-based economy. You see banking collapses right now. A lot of people are realizing that it's probably best to invest in silver or gold, resources, because that's the only thing that's going to retain the value. What is the best thing you think human beings can invest in? Because some people say, I'm going to invest in a home, buy some property, some real estate. Some people say, what do you think the best thing to invest in right now?
Yeah. I think there's a couple things. First, because I learned something the hard way. When I had sold one of my first companies in 2004, I had built a company from 1998 all the way to 2004. It was one of the very first .com marketing group. Look it up. I sold a company for millions of dollars. But in 2004 is when the sale happened, and I said, okay, now I got all this money. I'll just put all my money in real estate. So I started putting my money in real estate. And in the beginning, it was phenomenal. I was killing the game. I had over 400 properties. But then all of a sudden, the real estate bubble came, and I didn't see the bubble coming. I didn't see it. and the bubble came. I only had all my eggs in one basket, and the basket had a big hole in it. So I had to almost start over again. Not quite from zero, but I took a big hit. And I realized diversification. I realized something else. Every so many years, there's going to be another grand thing that's going to come to try to wipe out the economy. Because I went back and said, oh yeah, 2000, they had this thing with the 1990, 2000. You go back before. Every so many years, you come back, it's going to be something crazy. So I said, you know what? Something else is coming. I got to be prepared for this. I need to diversify myself. So I began diversifying my assets and my income, creating passive sources of income. So things that you want to invest in would be definitely silver and gold, which is fine. Investing in that, you can't deny that it's a great investment. However, be aware that if martial law is declared, there is an executive order that was signed that states that they can come and take your gold and your silver. They can't take platinum, but what are you going to do with platinum? But if you hoard it, if you get caught hoarding it, they can even take you to jail. Just keep that in the back of the mind. But gold and silver, definitely, you can smelt it, you can turn it into things. Gold is a very important element because it's a technological element. It's used in almost every single piece of technology, including the screen that I'm talking to you right now. It's got gold microcircuitry, right? So you have to have gold for technology. It's a great conductor of electricity and so forth. Whatever you put in one end, you get 100% out on the other end, no matter the distance. Versus a regular copper wire, you lose some electricity and friction over the distance. So that's a great technological thing to have, right? Silver has a lot of great uses as well. But also I would diversify I would look into what's real new other economy that's building right now, which is crypto, but not just by buying coins. That's not really the way to do it. I would learn how to invest in liquidity pools for the coins. Become the bank. Those coins operate on private banks. Just like when you put your money in the bank, Chase Bank, you put your money in Chase Bank. While you're sleeping, Chase Bank takes all your money out of your account and invests it into things and loans it to people. When you wake up, they tuck the money back in your account real quick. And you go, oh, my money's still there. But they made like $100,000 overnight or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So, but they didn't give you any of it. They gave you like $1.10 interest payment on it. So I said, how can I become my own bank? So I learned how to become my own bank, right? So this is something that people should look into. How do you become your own bank? Learn how to invest in liquidity pools in crypto. And no matter whether the crypto is up or down, you still make money. And then, of course, I would still invest into real estate. Even though there's always going to be a bubble here and there, but over a long period of time, you see crypto definitely is very interesting. And I would also do what I do. I do stock options and stock, buy and hold stock and sell on the dip sometimes. So you use a little bit of swing trading. It's just a mixture of all these different things. I figured if I did that no matter what happens, there'll be money coming from somewhere. And so when the whole global sickness happened, you know what I'm talking about? I was fine. I made more money during the global sickness than I ever made since I've been in business. And why? Right. Because I had multiple streams of income working. 2 of them actually went completely down, but the other ones had taken over for that and it was striving. So, diversification really is the key.
Definitely. Let's talk about the levels of this shit, right? There's levels to this, right? We sometimes call people elites, right? And I always tell deep divers that not all elites are bad. They're elites for a reason, because they're playing chess, you're playing checkers. Don't hate the guy who's in the mansion. He just figured out how to get in there. Don't think everyone who's got billions of dollars is evil. Sometimes they've just got information and knowledge. A lot of people who are living in poverty consciousness are ignorant, and they choose to be. So people who are leveling up, they deserve to be there. I always say, don't hate the player, just create a better game for yourself,
That's right.
And it's a case where I think a lot of people, especially in the conscious community, think that the elites are evil. And I always tell people that be careful, you are the elites. You are an elite. You have to see that you are an elite. Stop giving the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. They're just families who took an opportunity, and focus on yourself and realize you are an elite. No one's stopping you from creating anything you want to create. No one's in the way. There's no secret group out to get you. I always say no one's out to get me. The whole universe is working for me. So
exactly.
Let's talk about the levels to this, because knowledge isn't for everyone. And I truly feel that certain elites over time have preserved the knowledge, because they realize if it was in the hands of the masses, they wouldn't have appreciated appreciated the knowledge, they would have done something stupid with it. So knowledge isn't for everyone. Let's talk about the levels of this stuff, because we often think that, people, the everyday person is the righteous one and the people on top are the evil ones. I mean, how has your perception changed of that for yourself? Actually manifesting.
Well, you actually kind of nailed it. We are the elites. We just have forgotten who we truly are and the power that we have. The power is in the people, not in the small groups that have been able to learn how to dominate economic systems, regions of the planet through military force. We have given them the power. This is what makes us the elites. We literally have allowed them to dominate us. And how? With our collusion, our silence, our agreement to follow what they tell us we should be doing, and of course, falling for their trickery of divide and conquer and believing that my brother or my sister is my enemy. And so when you look into the ancient past, you go all the way back into the beginning of the mystery schools, like both the Atlantean, he was the creator of the mysteries. Only adept initiates were able to get into those classes, those secreted, hidden away classes to get that advanced knowledge. Why? Because you just said it. You got to make sure people don't just take this information and just turn it into garbage or waste it or use it for evil, which actually is what happened. So over time, these mystery school teachers, they disappeared, right? They were gone. The people that were the keepers of the knowledge over time, their offspring or the other adept initiates that they began to bring in, started realizing, wow, you know what? This knowledge is so powerful. It can be used for good or evil. I can use it to dominate the masses, or I can use it to enlighten people and raise consciousness. And small secret societies began to break off from the mystery schools. The mystery schools, kind of like the Bloods and the Crips, right? They all started off positive, helping out the neighborhood, helping out the single moms, making sure people were protected and everything else. And all of a sudden it turned into a gang that likes to kill and slaughter everybody. Same thing happened with the mystery schools. Over time, over eons, people began to break off into small sects, and then they began to create Skull and Crossbones, Illuminati, all these little secret societies. And these little secret societies, they started talking, these little groups amongst themselves, and I do mean small groups too. How can we utilize this knowledge and power that we use to amass this amount of wealth that we've got to also manipulate the consciousness of the planet and keep control over masses of people for extended periods of time? And these small groups, they make plans for thousands of years in advance. They don't plan for next week like we're doing. They don't say, when I get my paycheck next week, I got to pay this bill and I'm going to go get this new pair of shoes or whatever, or buy it. No, they're planning for eons at a time. And so this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people that are masterminds. And I try to tell the masses all the time, don't get mad at these people. They're sharks. What does a shark do? If you put blood in the water, it's going to attack.
Yes.
Don't think a shark is going to be a doggone goldfish, right? A shark is a shark. You have to understand the shark is going to be a shark no matter what. But look how many people there are. 8 billion. We have to learn how to organize. When we learn how to organize better and direct our conscious thoughts and act on them and demand what we deserve and find out who we truly are, then that's when the whole paradigm begins to slightly shift. Right now, we're in a state where we're relying on government, and we're relying on, look, the government works for us. We hired them. They're actually our servants. We tell them what to do, but they got it strict. They flipped it on us. They got us thinking that we work for them. And if we don't listen to them, they're going to put us in jail. So we need to be putting them in jail. So it's this whole thing, this whole neuroscience that they've done to us to flip our minds the opposite way. We have to understand that, the way that they've manipulated the knowledge and the information, it allows them to keep their boot on our neck. Now, sometimes there's too much knowledge. So I've seen people in this community actually go crazy from learning too much. And there's a lot of them out there. And I'm not saying it in an insulting way. I'm saying in a way where there's a lot of people right now that actually need to see a psychiatrist, because they've taken in so much. They were already probably on the fence and it pushed them over the edge. And so there's some people out here right now that are really completely gone. I talk to them from time to time. These are people that I actually know personally, but they're out there. Some have become
how do you keep the balance? How do you keep the balance for yourself? Because you're diving deep at the same time. You're very level-headed, very practical. So how do you keep your own balance? You're very calm. So how do you do this?
Yeah. Meditation is key. Brain heart coherence, realigning myself, checking myself. I'm not afraid to check myself. I'm not afraid to check my own thoughts. If I start having a thought that seems kind of weird or strange or out of bounds with what I know is right, I stop and I sit back and I begin to talk to myself, because I realize I'm not my thoughts. I'm the observer of my thoughts. So I separate myself from the situation. I look down on it and I make the corrections to my actions before they continue. So people have to learn how to separate from their thoughts. Right now, there's a lot of people who have so much information overload, and now they're letting the thoughts run away. Beyonce's in the Illuminati, and there's a clone of Gucci Man rapper. He's a cloned rapper, and the Earth shapes and all. They're getting carried away with. They're forgetting, and what they're really supposed to be focusing on is themselves. And they get so caught away in the conspiracies that everything is a conspiracy. Everything. Billy Carson doesn't blink enough. There's guys who count my blinks when I talk. There's people counting how many times I swallow. So you see what's saying? They're getting caught up with stuff that doesn't make any sense, but that's because they become their thoughts. They haven't separated from the thoughts and said, hey, wait, check this. Wait a minute, get your stuff back in check now. Let's get back to focusing on ourselves, working on ourselves, learning who we are. Let's keep gaining the knowledge. So it's a process of checking yourself, getting back in brain heart coherence, taking breaks, meditation, getting out in nature, and sitting on information. I'll read something that could be so powerful. I'll hear somebody say something that could be really, really powerful for me. And I'll take a break. I'll take a 10-minute break on my busy day, and I'll sit back and I'll think and meditate on that. Then after I do that, I'll spend another 10, 15 minutes looking into it a little bit to see if it's something I want to put on my radar to look up and dig deeper into. People aren't taking those kind of breaks right now. They're just running with every single thing they hear and see. But you can't do that, because then again, you become your thoughts and you run away with those thoughts. You got to become the observer of the thoughts.
Definitely. What you're saying is so powerful. When I first came across your page, Forbidden Knowledge, especially on Instagram, you had such diverse information. And I feel this is really what helped grow your page so big. You weren't just talking about UFOs. You're talking about love and relationships. You're talking about food. So many different things, music, science. And what's really helped me along my journey is listening to people like Krishnamurti. I don't know if you heard of Krishnamurti, Osho. These different people who are also talking about inner engineering. I had Sadhguru who did a show with me, and he's very into that inner engineering. He talks about that, and he's a guru in India he knows his stuff. So I always say it's so powerful to get both sides, the inner and the outer. How important is that for you? The outer with the UFOs, but also what's going on with your thoughts, your emotions, because there's a whole entire universe, as above, so below, as within, so without. So if everything we see out there is inside of ourselves, shouldn't we be studying ourselves as well?
Listen, you should be the best expert on yourself.
Right.
If you have a situation going on with you and you have to go to a doctor, you should know as much about that situation, about yourself, before you even arrive at the doctor. Not that you're diagnosing yourself completely, but you should be able to know enough about yourself and about the situation that you're facing, that before you walk into the doctor's office, you can completely and good and phenomenally articulate exactly what the problem is. So many of us don't know about ourselves. Who takes time to sit down and just send energy down your arm and move from one arm to the next arm? Move energy around the body. Sometimes I just sit down and move energy down my legs, up my leg, down the other leg, up the other leg, around my back, into the other arm. I just sit there and move energy around my body. People have to take time to spend time with themselves. Learn about yourself. Research and investigate yourself. You should know more about yourself than anybody else on this planet. You shouldn't have to go somewhere and have somebody tell you about yourself. You should be able to articulate and specify exactly specifically what it is that's going on in a way that they can completely understand it, and also know that you have a certain level of knowledge. And when you walk into these doctors' offices, for example, you've got to realize something else. They are your servant. They work for you. You don't work for them. So when they start bossing you around or just saying, hey, scoffing at you, say, hey, just take this medicine, you should be able to say, no, stop. You forget, you work for me. I'm paying you good money for this. And this is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to talk about this a little bit more. We're going to dig deeper into this a little bit more. We're going to come up with an alternative solution to 10 pills a day. So these are the things that we got to realize. It's all about really going to inner space. I like to take time going on inner journeys, meditations. I'll do my own guided meditation sometimes where I'm actually talking out loud, where I can hear my own self talk. but I'm guiding myself deeper into meditations. All these things are just so important. People can't be afraid to experiment and explore themselves, because what we've done is, as a society, we've relinquished all of our power to outside everything. Everything has to come from the outside. Nothing's coming from the inside. So we have to reverse that and go to the inner space, like I like to say, and begin to learn all about who we really are, what we like, what we love, how to make ourselves happy. Heck, I used to take myself on dates from time to time. I still do randomly take myself on a date. You got to learn how to love yourself.
Right. And talking of dates, congratulations to you and your queen. It's so powerful to see a great relationship, because I feel that's the missing link. In ancient Egypt, you had the king and the queen. They sat beside each other. You've had the rise of people like Andrew Tate, Kevin Samuels, the Manosphere, Red Pill community, where it's like a lot of men are saying, hey, I'm reclaiming my power. I'm the man of the house. This whole resurgence of that. And it's so good to see that you have this great relationship in your own life. What do you think about this rise of a manosphere, with people like Kevin Samuels and Andrew Tate, all of these people, bringing back masculinity? Do you feel that it's about that, or it's really just about going back to that balance of the feminine and the masculine coming together?
I really truly believe in the balance of the feminine and masculine. I think we have to have the balance. The balance of feminine and masculine has been lost for some time. The evidence of it is, look how the masculine energy has run this world. We almost run this thing into the ground. All the wars and the killings and the murders and the jail system and the capitalistic systems and everything else is primarily 99% men, right? You go to, you go to Egypt and you just drive through that area, you'll see the absence of female energy. Feminine energy is gone. Everything is brown, one color, no flowers, no plants. Everything's dirty. It's like a giant bachelor pad. And so you see, physically and spiritually, the balance needs to come back. Now, these guys have risen up and they've come up with some great topics and some great points of view. I can't take that from them, because, heck, I've even listened to some of the things that they've said and taken it into account with my own life. But I take in information from everything. I take information and I just remove what insults my soul. So if something insults my soul and insults who I really am as a person, I just leave that part out. The good parts I keep and add to my repertoire, and I've been like that since forever. People go, you don't like God, you don't like the Bible. No, first of all, I believe in a God, number one, and I've studied that Bible. I probably went through that Bible over 200 times, up, down, inside and out, more than most Christians have ever done. And I use that Bible and information from that Bible almost on a daily basis, because why? There's good things in that book that I can apply to my life. I'm not an idiot, you know what I'm saying? And so, just like with these guys, there's things that they're talking about that have good applications and good understanding, and some masculinity is not, all masculinity is not toxic. Again, though, there just needs to be a balance. I seem to, for myself, have found this particular balance that works for me and in my life, even against all obstacles of people, racism and everything else, that has happened since I've been in this relationship. I'm happy and I'm going to stay where I'm at, and I'm going to continue to do what I do best and continue to operate the way that I operate. The thing that made me forbid knowledge is the fact that, and the person who I am today, is that peer pressure and pressure from people on the outside and their comments and how they feel about me never really affects me. I just continue to stay in my lane and do my own thing. And I'm going to continue to do that, but those guys, they have some good points in some aspects of what they're talking about. But yeah, I'm just a guy who just believes that we have to have some kind of balance with everything. Balance is important.
Definitely. So I'm in Abbot Kinney in the Mystic bookstore. And there's a book by Zachariah Stitchin. And, it was talking about the Anunnaki. I was in the shop for like 2 hours just reading it, saying, oh my gosh, he really dived deep into so much lost information that people have forgotten about, and I know you talk about the Anunnaki bloodlines. One of the questions people have as children is, where did we come from? And parents say, be quiet, it's not important. But actually it is important. You've had people like Ridley Scott make films like Prometheus, Alien Covenant, great films. And it's all about us going into space to say, hey, let's find who created us. Elon Musk said, hey, we're living in a simulation 100%. So who created the simulation? Who created human beings in your mind? Some people say we came from the ground. But how did that happen? Some people say it's just natural evolution or natural selection or whatever. Yeah. Some people say we came from monkeys or apes. Some people say, be quiet and carry on. So shut up and get to work. But I feel that's one of the most important questions, because you see, I've seen that you've broken down the Bible. So has Ralph Ellis as well. Got some great work on that. But I know you've also studied Enuma Elish. In the Bible, there is evidence of a lot of things that actually did happen, like Noah's Ark, great floods happening that wiped out entire civilizations. They talk of the Nephilim, giants walking on the earth. You had a video and you said, what if the God of the Bible is actually Satan?
It's Satan.
I said, this brother's diving deep. I love that. Because, when I see these celebrities get awards, they say, the first thing they say is, I want to thank God, I'm like, which God are you talking about?
Exactly. Yeah. Listen, that video that I made, could the God of the Bible be Satanist? I think it's 1.3 million views or something like that.
Right, and right.
The video, I'm proud of that video, because that video is not demonetized by YouTube. The reason why is because I had sources for everything that I said in that video. And my hypothesis and theory was based on sources that are real, that anyone can look up. And I listed my sources in that video. So they had no choice but to let it stay up and let it be monetized, because it's a legit video and it's a legit question based off of sources, some ancient texts, tablets, and scriptures, and so forth. But like you said, as far as the question goes, there's levels to the game. Where did we come from, right? And so we're talking about, I don't like to reference the New Age text. The New Age text is the biblical text. That's New Age. The Bible is not ancient. We've got to face it. The Bible was written from the 1st century to the 900s. So we're talking about 100 AD to 900 AD, right? So that's pretty new. When you go to ancient texts, which we know, like I talk about all the time, the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, the Atrahasis epic, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the book of Noah, and all these other texts, the Egyptian Book of the Dead and so forth, that have made it into the biblical text, you begin to read that text and it talks about the creation of mankind. But what you find is pretty interesting. It seems as if there was already somebody here. And I'm like, wait a minute. So they've just modified something that existed. So I said, wow, this is pretty interesting. So I started looking around the other cultures around the world and finding a lot of the indigenous people, they have their own handed down verbal history. The Hopi tribe, the Lakota, the Aboriginals of Australia, they have the same story. Their story predates even the Enuma Elish. They say that they were seeded on this planet by Pleiadians. These are advanced beings of aliens of some type from another star system. What's interesting is when you look at the majority of these artifacts that talk about these ancient cultures, or from these ancient cultures, they have the Pleiades encoded or engraved or etched onto these artifacts that have been left around, which are now all in in museums. And so the Pleiades is a very, very important star system. It's even talked about in the Bible. It's talked about in the Enuma Elish. The Sumerians talk about it. It's everywhere. Anywhere you go in the world, you'll find that they talk about the Pleiadian star system. And of course, the Aboriginals saying that they were seeded here from the Pleiades. So it lets me know that something must have happened, according to our ancestors, that allowed people to bring us to this planet, us being our cousins. And at some point, we had rise and falls of civilizations. And during one of our falls, these other beings came here from another star system called the Atlantean culture. We call them the Anunnaki. They built an Atlantean civilization. They saw the opportunity to take advantage of us because of our ignorance. When any advanced civilization meets a less advanced civilization, the less advanced civilization will deify them. And that's exactly what happened. They became our gods. And we worshiped them and we did work for them. We did the labor for them in honor of the gods. We gave them our offerings. Our offerings to them were how they ate their food. We were cutting up our lambs and bringing them all the first fresh harvest. That wasn't just so they can smell the scent of it. They were cooking that stuff and eating it. They'll tell you this when you go to Egypt. They had storehouses at the temples. Oh, put that in their storehouse because we're gonna have a barbecue next week. Now these people came and brought the food for us. Right. So It was a complete deception. They masqueraded as gods. But when you look at it, it's like, man, where do we really come from then? It's really an open-ended question. I believe a couple things. The first thing, I believe that we're living in a fractal holographic matrix. Not that it's fake, but that's the description of how this universe is actually functioning and how it's made. We live inside of it. We're fully immersed in the hologram. We're part of the energy grid. And we found a way, in some way, to take shape and form and take in programming code and even program our own selves through RNA, DNA, through hormones. It's all programming code. But who programmed it? So somebody, in my opinion, on the outside programmed this entire universe and set it in motion. And we're just one of Googles and Googles of universes that exist in a sea of universes. And that black holes are really white holes where new universes enter into existence and grow and receive new programming code, new laws of physics. And it could be this super grand experiment going on. So it's pretty interesting to sit back and ponder, because we could be a science experiment of some child, from another dimension.
Definitely. And how do you see everything happening with just the awakening? Because you've seen it firsthand. Do you think that more and more people are waking up? Or do you think that people are going kind of back to sleep, or it's always been the same? Do you think there's we're getting worse, we're getting better, or people are just people wherever they are?
I think we're getting better. I mean, like I said, I've gone from where conversations used to have to be hidden and secret, about in secret. You couldn't talk about UFOs and aliens. Now you can talk about UFOs and aliens on TV. I mean, I do that all the time, all right? And people don't call me crazy anymore, because now the government's saying, oh, the aliens and the UFOs exist. And now people are saying, man, what you told me 25 years ago is real. I'm like, I was right. I told you. So I'm getting messages all the time from people who used to call me crazy. People are family members and friends, and texting me and telling me, I'm sorry, man, you were right this whole time.
Right.
So there's this process now and now they're asking so many questions. I can't even get a break, but it's okay. But people are beginning to ask a lot of questions, which is phenomenal. That's what we need, because even a genius asks questions, aka Tupac. That's what he said, right? So we have to continue to ask questions, and through asking questions and seeking answers to those questions, like dutifully seeking answers, we'll begin to learn more about the world that we live in, the universe we live in, and ourselves.
Phenomenal response. There's a saying that a lot of people don't live, they merely exist. They're automatons, they're drones. And then one day, by some grace, they wake up. They often call this the dark night of the soul. Did you go through that yourself? Because sometimes we just see, a finished version of someone living their best life, but we don't see their own journey. And I know a lot of people who are master teachers like yourself, they've gone through hell to get there. It's like when you study the lives of like the great gurus, they've really gone through so much that's what puts them in that position, because they know what it's like to be on the bottom. They know what it's like to break down. They didn't just wake up with a silver spoon in their mouth. So how was it for you? Did you have a breakdown? Did you have a moment of like, oh yes, I'm going to the fifth dimension right now? Did you have that metamorphosis from like the caterpillar to the butterfly? What happened for your own like shift to say, yes, I am Billy Carson. I'm here to do this. Were you once fast asleep just like everyone else?
That's pretty interesting. That's a great question. I knew I was a little bit different just because of my learning aptitude when I was younger, just because only learning, not because of any spiritual stuff. I was doing so good in reading. I was reading children's books, See Cat Run, See Dog Run, by the age of 1. And by the time I was really actually 2, I was actually reading more complex books and information. I was able to recite some of this information from biblical texts like the 43rd Psalm or the Lord's Prayer. My dad would take me around and have me recite this stuff at bars. He'd put me up on bars at 2 o'clock in the morning and have me talking to all his drunk friends in New York City, Queens, in the middle of the night, which you can do. You can bring kids to the bar back then, believe it or not, in the 70s. And so I knew I was a little bit different from that regard. When we moved from New York and went to Miami, Florida, we moved to Opelika, a very hardcore place. Still even today, hardcore. The school I went to has a 20-foot barbed wire fence around it. Okay, give you an idea. You have to put a barbed wire fence around an elementary school. You're in a bad situation. Intense. Okay, my kids, they didn't have that. And drug addicts and murders and shootings and killings, right in front of my house. Stabbings right in front of my house. people trying to break in and things like that. It was a pretty hard upbringing. I remember we were so poor, we would eat Cairo syrup and toast. We would beg neighbors for food. We would steal mangoes and oranges out of neighbors' yards to get food. We didn't have water sometimes. We would have to use the neighbors. We would attach our water hose to their outside spigot to have water. Sometimes we had to take showers in the backyard with cold water. So we're talking about hard times when we had them. And I remember seeing my friends going to the ice cream truck, and they would always have money for the ice cream truck. And I was like, how can they have money from the ice cream truck? We can't even take a shower. And I said to myself, this is when I had my epiphany moment. What if I just went door to door with all my toys? Because I don't need these toys anyway. I was 7 years old. And I took all my toys, 8 years old. I put all my toys in this crate. And I went door to door and I asked for donations for my toys. I said, sir, ma'am, I'm just trying to have some money for the ice cream truck, a penny, a nickel, a quarter, or whatever. By the time I got done getting rid of all those toys, I had $13 and change roughly in my hand. And I had money to go to the ice cream truck. And that was my epiphany. That's when I woke up. I literally said to myself these exact words: I'm going to be okay because I'm going to save myself. I knew I was going to get out of that situation. And I dedicated my life from that moment on to having my own thought experience, like listening to my conscious thoughts and saying, well, if I act on them, I might get a better outcome. Like I acted on my thoughts about selling my toys. I went and actually did them. I went against my mom's will because I wasn't supposed to leave the gate. We had this little setup where you go past this gate or that gate, you get in trouble. You get beat, you get put on punishment. So we had this little parameter set up, and I bypassed that, and I just went door to door around the whole neighborhood. But that was my epiphany moment. That's when I really realized the power of my thoughts and acting on my thoughts. I realized then that knowledge isn't power. The application of knowledge is power. And that's what changed my life.
That is truly phenomenal. Right now, there's this whole talk of the fifth dimension. I talk about it, this shift that we're all in right now. Some people are already there. Some people have already been there since the 70s, and some people prophesize this time. The Hopi talk about we're entering the fifth world. We're currently in the fourth world, and the fourth world is what we're in right now. Russia and Ukraine, lots of wars, craziness. But there's a Hopi prophecy when the earth is ravaged and the animals are dying, that prophecy. A new world is coming to the planet from different creeds, colors. What the Hopi spoke of is that humanity stopped listening to the elders. What is the importance of elders? People in Peru, in Ethiopia, where it's like the oldest form of Christianity. I've been to Ethiopia. People say it's, the birthplace of civilization. In Ethiopia, you can actually see every kind of human being on the planet. I always encourage everyone to go to Ethiopia because you'll see people with blue eyes, straight hair, afros, dark skin, you'll see everything in Ethiopia. And then that's how you realize that actually that's most probably where all human beings first came from. But, how do you see this happening in terms of us just moving to, a higher frequency? And
it's going to be a gradual process. Right now, I like to use the analogy of a baby learning how to walk, right? So right now, humanity is a baby, and we're trying to crawl right now. And every now and then, we plop back down on our stomach. That's the state that we're in right now. We haven't really stood up to really take the first step. We're getting close, though. Eventually, the baby will reach up on the edge of a table or a bed and pull itself up and take a few steps. And that's when everybody's going to be cheering like, we made it, we made it. We're celebrating a little too early because that baby is going to fall down again, right? After it takes its first two steps, it's going to fall, it's going to cry and scream like crazy too. But when that happens, we have to be prepared to understand this is part of the process of us understanding to learn how to walk and maintain our walking gait. When we pull up again, like a baby will do, and begin to take more and more steps, what is walking? Walking is controlled falls. When you learn how to control your fall, that's what walking actually is. We'll learn how to control our fall. We will rise, we will walk. We'll get through all this technological babble that's trying to take over the world. We'll learn how to have balance with technology and spirituality. We'll get through the war state that we're in. We'll get through suppressing technologies and everything else. Because how? All these systems that have been put in place, these different matrices that are holding us down, We, meaning conscious people, are going to begin to infiltrate from the inside of those systems and break them apart. Even in government, we're going to become conscious and infiltrate and break systems apart in government. And so over the course of time, we will continue to move up the Tetra Yuga back into a golden age.
That's so powerful. There's an island called North Sentinel Island. An explorer went there, and he was killed with an arrow. There are places still on this planet which human beings haven't entered. Just like the Avatar movie, there are still indigenous communities who have never interacted with modern day human beings. Do you feel they hold certain knowledge which could benefit us right now? And also, are they better off? Are they better off than us? Because we often think we've made it. Yeah, we got the iPhone, we got the technology, but are they the smart ones? Have we bitten the apple? Because a lot of them might wake up, they might meditate, no bills to pay, they're chilling, and a lot of us, we're always trying to get the next thing. We're the only species.
They're living the life.
Right.
They are living the life, and they have a lot of sacred knowledge that they've been handing down from generation to generation over and over again. These people have no military, no police force, virtually no crime in most cases, right? No prisons, no jails. And they're living and thriving for thousands of years. And the only thing that stops them is when one person or a group of people show up and say, hey, we now own your land and we're going to build a resort here and you can work for us. That's when everything goes down. And so, we really, these people should be protected. The ones that are untouched, to date, they should be protected. There should be nobody allowed to interact with them or engage them in any way, shape, or form. Allow them to continue on their path, because the path that they're on is a lot more peaceful and pleasant than the path that the majority of the world is on. They figured out a lot of problems a long time ago. And yes, they haven't advanced technologically, but spiritually, they seem to be intact.
Definitely. I'm not sure if you heard of Greg Braden. He was someone who, he's got a lot of great research. One of the things he talks about is something called telomeres. And he was saying how the modern civilization is aging, but it doesn't have to, because stress shortens the length of the telomeres. And when I see you, I'm like, this brother could be 25. It's like you're not aging. So what are you doing that most people aren't doing that look twice their age? How come you're looking half your age? You're looking so young. What are you doing? Because all of the mystery systems, they talked about the elixir of life. You drink a potion and it's going to give you immortal life, and you're going to look, and everyone right now, even celebrities, are getting BBLs and Botox, and they want to look younger. Everyone wants to do that, but you're doing it naturally. So how did you begin to change your life? Was it something you started to eat? Do you think the food played a part, or was it the meditations, or just you're stress free?
I think it's a combination of a few things. So one thing is, I learned a long time ago about an ancient elixir of life from the ancient tablets, and it's colloidal silver and monoatomic gold water. They're both water. The gold water has nano suspended particles of gold in it, aurum, and then the other one is the colloidal silver, which has nanoparticles of silver suspended in water. And when you mix those two together and you drink a very small amount every single day, it does wonders for the body. It's like literally an elixir of life. It goes into the body, and it heals organs and injuries, and it goes into the brain. The gold actually speeds up synapses between the neurons in the brain. It's just an incredible thing to take. That, and again, on top of that, stress, trying to reduce stress. So my main objective every single day, especially when I wake up, the first thing I do when I wake up is say, I want to have a stress-filled day. I'm going to relieve my stress. There'll be no stress today. It's going to be an amazing day. I want to set the tone for the day of having a stress-free day. And I know that situations are going to pop up and things are going to blindside me. But when they do, my main objective is to be a problem solver and be a warrior, not a worrier. You understand what I'm saying? And to solve those problems and take them head on and continue on my peace quest every single day. So being at peace and not being stressed out for decades has allowed me to maintain a lot of my youth. I still play basketball. I still run with the kids. I'm still dunking, basketball and the hoop and everything else, which is pretty cool. And some people don't believe that, but I'm going to put a video out of me doing that. I could shoot basketball left-handed or right-handed just as equally as good. And I like to bowl left-handed, right-handed. I do a lot of left-hand, right-hand work. So I'll bowl left-handed, I'll bowl right-handed. I'm talking about real bowling, not fake bowling with the hook, professional level bowling. Do shooting left-handed, right-handed, playing tennis, right-handed, left-handed. All these things allow you to work both sides of the brain. So I'm keeping my brain healthy. Because I'm working both hemispheres on a consistent basis. I'll do coordination drills when I'm sitting by myself, helping to keep the brain healthy, right? So, you rub your stomach and pat your head, do things like that. Brush your teeth with your opposite hand, write with your opposite hand, things like that. So those things also help. And of course, the meditation. So between those, the monatomic gold, the colloidal silver, meditation, and working both hemispheres of the brain and doing brain exercises, solving problems, quizzes, puzzles, and things like that. And of course, exercise, it keeps me feeling young. I feel great, man.
Right. That's phenomenal. I've been plant-based for over 18 years. And, it's been a big part of my journey. I love animals as well, but also for health reasons. But as I'm growing, I realize there's no one rule for everybody.
I learned that lesson.
Right. So how has your own food journey evolved? I don't know if are you plant-based yourself, or are you a meat eater, or do you think it makes any difference in someone's evolutionary journey on the planet? Some people say it's okay, to eat meat. Some people say it's not. What's your view on that?
It's been a journey. So how I got into eating mostly a vegetarian diet and eventually into a vegan diet in the beginning was because we didn't have any money for meat when I was a kid. So, and when we did have meat, I'm a texture person. The texture made me feel weird. I would spit the meat out. So my dad was like, "Don't waste any more meat on him. Give him side dishes." I was eating corn and rice and all the fruits and vegetables and stuff on the side whenever we had it. And so that turned into a habit, eating mostly only side dishes because I didn't like the texture of meat, and eventually turned into veganism. The problem that I had I didn't do veganism properly, which a lot of people don't. And a lot of people that I knew that were in it, developed autoimmune, which I developed an autoimmune response. Which is rashes from allergic reactions from just eating greens. So if I eat kale or spinach now or lettuce, the lectins in the greens actually attack my white blood cells, and my white blood cells react, and they attack my body, and it shows up as rashes on my skin. And then I had leaky gut, malnourishment. I was going into borderline osteoporosis, and I had internal bleeding. So I got into a point where I didn't even realize it was the diet. And I finally found a doctor that can help me. And she told me, it's your diet. And so she sent me to get a blood panel done. So I went and got a complete blood panel at LabCorp. I took back the blood panel and the fecal exam, and I took it to a licensed dietitian who analyzed everything about me and created a specialized diet just for my blood type and just for me. And it incorporates some meats, steak and chicken, but more steak than chicken. And then of course a lot of plant, but I can't eat all the greens. So the only greens I can eat are a lot of green beans, lentils. I can eat asparagus. I eat a lot of asparagus every single day. And so those are some of the things I can eat. And then of course, anything that's not green as a vegetable, I can eat that as well. And I don't eat too many fruits. Too many fruits were also harming me because of the way the sugar was breaking down in my particular body type. So I had to back off of fruits significantly, which hurt because I love bananas and stuff like that. But I had to back off of that stuff significantly. So it's really, I'm eating to live at this point in my life because I have a lot more to do. My mission ain't complete yet. So I had to become cognizant of that. And I'm starting to eat to live versus just eating because of what I like. And everyone, I think, should get their own personalized diet based on their blood type and their fecal exam. Take it to a licensed dietitian and create a specified diet just specifically for them, because you never know. Some of these diets that are out here, they could be harming you and hurting you in ways that you're not even aware of until it's too late. So that's what I'm on.
Right, because I had 19 keys on. I said, are you vegan? He said no, because, the guy who created veganism loved animals. He didn't love health, Yeah. So right now on the planet, we see that a lot of things are trending. TikTok videos, and it seems always a time that sometimes it's a low vibration that for thousands of years has been always getting out there. There's a turning of the tide, but why do you generally feel that a lot of people are just so addicted to entertainment, things which don't help them grow? When it's low vibrational stuff, everybody pulls up. Everybody, the masses anyway, they love the drama. And it kind of feels like it's a gladiator's arena, Why do you feel that is?
Due to our epigenetic memories, which are memories that are stored in our body from 15 to 20 generations before we were even born. So we have these epigenetics in our body. All of our ancestors' memories and a lot of the negative things that happen to them get passed down through the RNA. The good stuff too, but for some reason the negativity is more focused. And a lot of those things create these different types of anxieties in us. And release different types of hormones at different times based on different stimulations. Under things that would be considered stressful or things that would make us anxious, we've kind of become codependent on the release of the hormone that is associated with that thing. So when you get on to social media and you start seeing people fighting, all of a sudden it spikes that cortisol and everything else, and the body's addicted to it, and your ancestors were addicted to it as well, or it was in their bloodstream when it was pumping before it transmitted into your body, and now all of a sudden you are codependently addicted to this hormone. You think it's the drama and the trauma that you're watching and the trend that you're watching, but what it really is the hormone that you're addicted to. When people are scrolling, yes, they're looking at the internet, but they're actually addicted to the hormone that's being released as they're scrolling. That's what's keeping the finger moving. Yeah. So what I was saying was talking about the, referencing the epigenetics and how they affect you 15 to 20 generations, and how we become addicted to the hormones that are really released into the body. So it's really the hormones that we are addicted to, the cortisol, the stimulants like adrenaline and so forth, and oxytocin. Any of these particular hormones that are getting released, they actually have programming codes embedded in them, and they control then the body. So we have to separate ourselves from the body. And we have to realize what's going on, and we have to take back control of this body from a higher dimension.
But I've seen the amazing thing is what you've done with forbidden knowledge, in my mind, is just on the other side of the spectrum. So you got people saying world star, right? And what you're doing is like world star, but it's like super conscious. So it's amazing because you're just as viral as the low vibrational stuff, but it's high vibrational. And I feel that's the next level, because I always say the time is over for low vibration to go viral. It's time for that high frequency, but you got to be smart. You got to be smart to do it, because people still want the gladiator arena. They still want to say, are you not entertained? They still want that scene from the gladiator movie. Manifestation is big. When I see what you've done, truly phenomenal. From the great books you've written, being on Gaia, all of these things, a music producer. Let's talk about the science of manifestation, because I always say, hey, you got to teach me how I can change my life financially. Not just about something that's out of my control. I want to know how I can level up, because there's a lot of people struggling out here. And sometimes when you manifest, you kind of forget. Some people are really struggling, and I see your life really, you're a great example of manifestation. And a lot of people don't really know how they can manifest. What was the greatest lesson that you learned in how to truly manifest what you want in life?
Well, it does go back to that instance when I was a kid, selling those toys and getting that money in my hand and realizing I had just manifested money by following my thoughts and acting on them. So then I began to apply that to every other area of my life. And I realized if I want to create my own reality, create my own future, it goes for me first by sitting down and meditating, thinking about what I want. In the beginning stages, I kind of fumbled through it a little bit because I was imagining what could be or what I would have versus claiming it and saying I have it already. So as I stumbled through the beginning stages and processes, I would kind of keep my own little track record and say, okay, well, this worked out, this didn't work out, this kind of worked out, but not as well as I thought it was going to be. And I'm all doing this with no gurus. I got no mentor, nothing like that. I'm just fumbling in the dark, trying to figure this out for myself. So then I said, why am I hoping and wishing that I'm going to have something instead of claiming that I already have it. And that's when the epiphany moment happened. And when I began to claim things for myself as if they've already happened, and when I would meditate about them as if I'm living it already, that's when everything began to change. I would meditate that I already have the car. I would go drive the car, test drive it, and everything else. Then I would meditate on it. Not that how am I going to get this car or thinking about the car? I would actually meditate that I'm driving it, that I'm showing it. I'm going to my friends' houses and I'm showing them my brand new car, that I got this house, that I'm coming home and I'm opening the door with a key and I'm walking in and I'm opening the refrigerator to get a glass of water and I'm sitting on the actual couch in my own house. These are the things that I started to do. And when I began doing that, the results became even more incredible, because then when you start thinking like that, energetically, the universe is going to start sending you signals. It's going to start sending you opportunities to get to the goal. You don't usually just go right from the thought to the goal. An opportunity will come your way that will allow you to make it happen so you can get to the end result. So I started going through that process, and you have to discern the opportunities when they arrive, because when those opportunities arrive, you have to see them for what they are. They are the connecting piece between you and the end result. A lot of people will scoff or just push away the opportunities thinking that's not what I'm after, but they have to pre-think. You have to pre-think the outcome of what this opportunity will bring and how does it get you to the end goal? Is it connected in some way? So when you do that, now you're actively participating in your reality and you're helping to create the reality that you actually want.
Phenomenal. And what keeps you going? Because you've manifested so much. A lot of people might say, hey, right now I'm just gonna chill in the Bahamas, and what keeps you up every day and still, working hard, inspiring millions of people? Because you could easily just say, you know what, right now I'm just gonna disappear. Why do you feel such a need to keep going? And what's your ultimate goal, or have you already achieved it?
I feel the need to keep going because ultimately, to be honest with you, I just love people. Do I have the same frustrations as you or anyone else about people and this and that? Yeah, of course, I'm a human being. But at the same time, overall, on a grand scale, I really love people and I want to see this planet change and evolve. And, one of my biggest things I'm trying to manifest now and working on is like, hey, I need to be around a lot longer. So I want to see, I don't want to just, see these seeds planted. I want to see some of the results from these seeds as well. I know I can't see all this, results. I'll never, I'm planting seeds for a tree that's going to grow into a big shade tree. I'll probably never sit in that shade, but I'd like to see some of those branches or some of those saplings grow out of the ground. I just really love people and looking forward to seeing the evolution of species on this planet and how it's growing and changing and how impactful I can be towards that growth and that change. Even if it's just a small percentage, I just feel like, wow, this is really amazing to be a part of this. I feel like I'm a pioneer of some sorts, and pushing mankind in a direction that's going to help us reach the light, and that generations and generations from now, people are going to be living in an age that's going to be so incredible and wondrous. And partly I had a small part to do with that. It makes me feel great.
How far away is that, or is it already here? Because, people like Eckhart Tolle has spoken about the new earth. I talk about it. And I always say that people are already in the new earth. It just depends where you go and who you know. Yeah. Some people are already out of this matrix, and they're living their best life.
Yeah, I've backed out of the matrix already. I only come back in to visit and take care of business. And so people have to understand that the ultimate goal is really to bring heaven to earth. We are already in heaven. Stop waiting to die so that you can live. That's not the way it's supposed to work. You're supposed to live now. And so my intentions is to wake enough people up to realize like, hey, oh, wow, we already are in heaven. Oh, we can even extend our lifespans if we want to. We can have control over the environment. Instead of destroying it, we can actually make it better. We can live in symbiotic relationship with the planet and the universe. And we can learn and grow and teach our kids to do things in the right way. We can destroy some of these capitalistic systems that have allowed certain people and corporations to destroy and put a boot on mankind's neck, and we can evolve and change it into something else. When they begin to have all these epiphany moments, all of a sudden, the way that this planet's going to be is going to shift completely. Now, how far away is it? Think about this. 100 years ago, we were in a horse, buggy, and carriage, and now we have Voyager 1 and 2 that are in interstellar space, have left the Oort cloud around our solar system and left now and headed to another galaxy. So we're in a place right now in only 100 years where we can do this. So I'm thinking, wow, what can happen here in 100 years if we keep pushing hard? What can happen in 200, 1,000, 2,000? That's a question mark. We'll never truly, truly know. We do know now that we are headed into the age of Aquarius, which officially starts in 2025. We're at the very, very beginning. We're on the precipice of knowledge and awakenings that are going to happen on a global scale. So it's really a great time to be alive.
Definitely. I'm not sure if you were raised a Christian or not. I was. I was raised in the church. I studied the Bible back to front. But I started to realize that religion is for people who are afraid to go to hell. Spirituality is for people who've already been there. And you have over 1 billion Christians, over 1 billion Muslims. Religion is a dominant force on the planet. It governs the lives of billions, not millions, billions of people. What is in that book, doesn't matter what you say, is the law. So how do you think people are going to break out of those programs? Because that's not an easy program to break out of. Because people, when they read it, they say that's God's words right there. And if you argue with them, it's almost like you're kind of taking away everything they know. So how do people break out of those programs? Because once again, it goes back to the Anunnaki gods who created these books in the first place.
It's very, very difficult. It's a very arduous, long process. But I liken it as to a person that's a master sculptor. And he's got this super megalithic piece of marble sitting in front of him. And he's got to turn it into a masterpiece. And he chips away at it a tiny bit at a time. So that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm just creating a sculpture. And I'm chipping away at these ideologies and the dogma that has locked mankind down. Some people see posts that I make, and to some people, it may sound a little like aggressive or harsh in the way that I'm describing the situation with religion, but it's not exactly what they think. What I'm doing is I understand human psychology, and I'm reaching out to a specific group of people in a way that they can actually understand it. So in some ways, sometimes I'm softer, sometimes I'm harder, sometimes the hammer hits hard, sometimes the chisel hits very light taps, right? Depending on you're getting around the nose structure, the ears, the eyes, you got to be very gentle in those areas, right? Or you'll break it. So certain areas you got to hit hard. You're creating the creases. You're going to create some of the hair and some of the facial structure. So you have to know how to wield that tool. And my tool is how I wield my tongue, and this is my knowledge. So I know when to go gentle, when to go soft, when to go hard in certain areas, depending on what platform I'm on. I know what group, what massive amount of group that I'm reaching in that particular area, and how to say it, how to deliver the information. I'm using applied neuroscience when I speak. I'm not just speaking random thoughts out of my head. Everything I say has a plan behind it. And so I'm like a sculptor, and I'm chiseling away at this dogma and these ideologies and these belief systems little by little. And over time, what you're going to see is it becomes a masterpiece. People begin to drop and these things begin to fall away. So many people that were heavy into church are now questioning and calling me and texting me, asking me questions they would have never asked me 10 years ago. Not in a million. They would have fought me 10 years ago physically. Now they're asking me a lot of questions. Why? Because they're starting to see there's a little something more. There's something that's not adding up. 2 and 2 ain't equaling 4 when I go through this information. And they heard a little something from me and a little something from you and a little something from this guy. And all of a sudden they're saying, wait a minute, let me ask myself a couple questions. And all of a sudden they're starting to see discrepancies. So over time, it's a very gentle process. If you go in too hard all the time, it's no good. If you're going too soft all the time, it's no good. Just this balance, ebb and flow and balance into how I do my stuff. And so gradually I'm just breaking people away from the dogma and the old belief systems little by little.
Is there any spiritual being or any human being that inspired you growing up to say, hey, I want to be like that guy or that woman? I want to embody what they have. Is there anybody for you growing up or even now that you say, okay, that human being really is someone who really lived this life and was all about it, really raising the frequency? Is there anybody that you can think of?
Well, one person that I can think of, to be quite honest with you, because I developed a real passion for ancient civilizations. I would say Eric von Daniken really inspired me a lot to travel the world. You know, he had been doing it for so long. He wrote the book Chariots of the Gods. He literally came up with the ancient astronaut theory. And in just listening to him, everything he does when he's speaking, he's asking questions. He never gives a definitive statement. He always asks a question. Even the book, Chariots of the Gods, has a question mark at the end of Gods. And all of his entire book is all questions. Could this be? How did this? What happened? And those things really sparked something in me to become a question asker and to begin to ask questions, great questions, and then seek answers to those questions. So in a lot of ways, he really inspired me to go on the global quest that I've started. I've been around the world now probably 15, 20 times. Last year, I spent I went to 259 cities and spent 6 months in hotels last year.
Wow.
So, I've gone on this global quest, and in part, I have to say, Eric Von Daniken really, really inspired me to do a lot of this stuff. And that's why full circle, I gave him his own TV show on my TV network. And at the end of this year, we're working on Chariots of the Gods, the remix.
Wow.
Which is incredible. At his age, I think he's 88 now. So he's on his way out. And it's kind of a passing of the torch. So a man that I looked up to for so many decades is now handing over the torch.
Let's quickly talk about timelines. We got 20 minutes more. I want to thank you for your time once again. Deep divers, we got a phenomenal being here, Billy Carson. The chat room is full. It's going crazy right now. I want to ask you about timelines. We've often been told that the pyramid was only a few thousand years old. The work of John Anthony T. West and other people, Graham Hancock, they talk about weathering and once upon a time Egypt being a green Sahara. So everything we're looking back at the ancient world, especially Egypt in particular, have we got the timelines wrong? Could it be like 50,000 years old, that pyramid, or even 100,000 years old? Or is it just a few thousand years old like they say?
They're way off. And the reason why they keep coming with this 6,000-year-old time frame, maximum 6,000 year, because the Sumerian tablets, some of the older ones are approximately 6,000 years old. And those are just copies from more ancient versions of the tablet. Those are like recopies of copies, like you make a photocopy. Those tablets go back hundreds of thousands of years. The Bible got to 6,000 years from the age of the tablets. And so have the mainstream archaeology, because it fit in with the religious belief systems. And it kind of worked because guess who was funding all this stuff? The Catholic Church. So if you got to agree with their system, or you don't get the money for the funding to do the research and everything else. And to make sure you get all the new discoveries, and we hide them away underneath the Vatican first, which is why the Vatican 5 Mile Archive is the largest travesty in human history right now, right? So they were funding all this research and investigation to hide all this sacred knowledge and all this advanced knowledge of the real timelines. When you look at John Anthony West and the timeline theory that he has, I agree with them 1,000%. When you begin to look at the different extinction level events that were going on, for example, the Sphinx being only a few thousand years is a joke, it becomes more realistic if you go back to the alignment with the constellation of Leo. But that's the first alignment will be 13,000 years ago. But all of a sudden you have the Younger Dryas with all the extinctionary events happening. We know for a fact the Younger Dryas is a real thing that actually occurred, an asteroid strike somewhere above the area of Syria, which then destroyed everything all the way down in through Egypt, down into Africa. And so not a good time to be building a Sphinx when you have dust in the atmosphere and the temperature of the planet dropping and all this other kind of ice age and all this stuff doesn't make any sense. But when you go back another 2 precessional periods for the alignment of Leo with the Sphinx, all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense. Perfect time to build a Sphinx. The weather patterning and the aging of the weathering matches the time period in terms of the dating. And then the Emerald Tablets, my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets, they're 36,000 years old. You go back 2 more precessional periods, you're right at 38,000 years old. It's a perfect match for the time that these tablets were written. And Thoth says, I built the Great Pyramid. So all of a sudden, ancient texts and some real sleuthing in archaeology lines up with star alignments. And to me, we're not even close to the real timelines they have in mainstream. When I studied ancient civilizations in that Harvard class, to be quite honest with you, it was like hard to wrap my brain around the timelines that they were giving out. It just didn't match up with just basic logic. But you have to go through that and you have to answer those questions. But in my mind, being a field researcher who've got my hands dirty out in the field and been on site and talk to the indigenous people in the area, talk to the homegrown guides and the archaeologists that don't follow the mainstream, like Robert Schoch and so forth, my hypothesis is we're talking about tens of thousands and in some cases hundreds of thousands of years old.
Phenomenal. Altered states of consciousness. In ancient Egypt, they had the lotus flower. Today, a lot of people take marijuana. Some people take other things, psychedelics. Terence McKenna was very big on that. He actually said this is how human beings evolved, by taking magic mushrooms. This is how their imagination grew. you did a video on remote viewing, which was phenomenal. And do you feel that, a lot of people are going to Peru taking ayahuasca retreats, and waking up? Do you feel that, because we already produce, the cannabinoids and everything inside of our own body anyway, but what are the role of certain plants that give us altered states of consciousness to tap into other realms and realities? How important are they?
Real. It's real, man. How, they came up with the understanding of how these plants can interact with them that way is amazing. First of all, how to know which mushroom, because some mushrooms can kill you. Some will give you a good meal, and some will give you a third dimension or fifth dimension experience, right? So it's like, how did they know this? And ayahuasca and everything else, this plant medicines, it's really amazing. But what we find is that it does increase a lot of people's awareness. It takes them to higher levels of thought and dimensions. It can take you on a complete trip, literally out of this world. It can take you even to meet other beings and entities and communicate with them. It's pretty incredible with the power that these plant medicines have. What we do have to be careful of is that we don't abuse these plants, because some people, unfortunately, have began to abuse the plant medicines, and they're doing it like it's just a casual, I'm going to have some mushrooms and go hang out this weekend, versus really working on themselves and taking then time to process all the information that they gained from that experience, and not just running to do another hit. So we have to find, again, balance within even psychedelics. But psychedelics have freed a lot of people from their corpses, so to speak, and woken up a lot of people. And another thing that you can do if you don't have the opportunity to do psychedelics, which I've actually never done, is you can do breathwork meditation. Through breathwork meditation, a series of breathing techniques, which I have plenty of videos on my Forbidden Knowledge TV, they're 2.5 to 3 hours long. Through these breathing techniques, the body begins to think that you're simulating the death process, and the pineal gland begins to release more DMT. It floods the body with DMT, which then gives you the same psychedelic experience. So there's a lot of ways to achieve those psychedelic experiences without necessarily going to Peru. But if you do decide to try any of these plant medicines or frog medicine, make sure you're in a safe place with people that you actually trust so you don't get taken advantage of. But and also just understand that it will rewire the way that you see life and yourself and the world and the universe as a whole. But again, balance. Do not abuse these precious plants.
Definitely. And once again, what you're doing is phenomenal because you're getting it out to the mainstream. Another person I see doing a similar thing is Joe Rogan. He has a third eye in his intro of his podcast show. Yeah. So it's showing something. When we talk of the third eye, a lot of people have heard of this term, the third eye. In fact, in ancient India, it was so powerful, really showing us so much. What's your own experience with the third eye personally? How has it helped you to see different things?
I always have this statement, I have 2 eyes to look and 1 eye to see. And people see me wearing sunglasses a lot. I wear shades a lot, and they think I'm trying to look cool. I've been wearing sunglasses or shades since I was even in school. The reason why is because I have something called synesthesia. And synesthesia is a condition it's a genetic at birth. I was born with the audio and visual cortex merged. So every sound that I hear, I actually generate colors and numbers in my eyes. And the glasses or shades dull down some of the input. But the third eye is really amazing because when I was a young kid, I remember doing my first thought experiment with meditation. I didn't know the word meditation yet. It didn't exist in my vocabulary. But I was at a wash house in Miami, Florida. Today, for example, it was 98 degrees outside today. And imagine now the pavement and the heat from the wash house, the dryers, like 115 degrees. I remember saying, man, it's just so hot. I wish I could send myself somewhere else, like that was cool or cold. So I sat down on the curb and I closed my eyes and I said, I'm going to send my mind to Alaska. I'm only like 8 or 9 years old at this time. And I literally focused on it so hard that I felt like I was really in Alaska. And when I came out of this quasi meditation, my skin felt cooler to the touch and I wasn't sweating. I knew something amazing had happened. That's the first experience I had in a meditative state, which I didn't learn the word meditation until actually a couple years later. I was like, oh, that's what I was doing, in meditation. And so it's these thought experiments, though, that I would do that would get me to all these higher levels and experiment with my body, learn more about myself. And later I learned that a lot of what I experienced in those meditations was coming from the pineal gland. The pineal gland is actually a third eye, buried deep within the brain. Why do they call it an eye? because it has photoreceptors, even though it can't see. It actually responds to lights and photons, even though it's buried deep, deep, deep in the brain. It's not really right here. That's just a thing that they do, to represent the eye, but it's deep, deep in the brain, and it's filled with crystals. Now, what's interesting about crystals is when you apply pressure to a crystal, it creates a spark. So anybody who has a lighter, if there's people on here that's watching right now that actually smoke or use a lighter to turn a barbecue grill on or whatever, when you flick that big lighter, there's not a flint in there that allows the fumes to light up and turn on fire. There's actually a crystal in that flicker. When the crystal has applied pressure to it, it sparks, and then the spark illuminates or lights up the fumes, which then gives you a flame, right? And so that same thing happens inside the human body. There's techniques that you can learn to move the spinal fluid up and down the spinal column and up into the brain, these special muscle movements that we've got videos on them again on Forbidden Knowledge TV, that will then apply pressure to the pineal gland, creating the spark, which can give you a Kundalini awakening, which I've had one of those before, where you begin to see geometric structures and shapes and other dimensions and beings and everything else, all while sitting in your own house. You can have this out-of-body experience. And the pineal gland, it literally is the third eye. It's your spiritual antenna. And so if you take the human brain and you cut it in half and open it up like this and look at it from a side view, you'll see the pineal gland, and you'll see that the parts of the brain that are wrapped around it look like the eye of Horus, which is the eye. So it's amazing that these ancient cultures knew that the pineal gland was connected to higher dimensions of thought and thinking and the spiritual antenna. And of course, they must have dissected a brain to see that it actually looked like the surrounding structure, when you opened it up, looked like an eye. And that's why the Egyptians painted it on everything. It was a representation of the pineal gland. So it's pretty interesting. It's not the Providence eye. It's not the Illuminati eye. Because why you got the Illuminati on all your stuff? No, that's the eye of Horus. That's the third eye. That's a spiritual antenna. It's nothing to do with Illuminati, guys. It's totally different. But that's what it is. And it's a powerful thing. When you learn how to access it and tap into it, and the DMT that's released from it can take you on a natural trip or a natural ride and connect you to higher realms and dimensions and connect you to your higher self, which is in another dimension altogether.
Phenomenal. There's a talk of chosen ones, the 144,000 special beings who are here specifically just to raise the frequency of the planet. Not everyone can go. That's what Nipsey Hussle said, not everyone can go. So when we talk of, I was in the barber shop today, the barber said, a butterfly can never be a bird. A bird can never be an eagle. There's rules to this thing. Everyone is here on a totally different mission and playing a totally different, people got to play their position. There's a kind of notion that everyone is going to ascend to the same frequency and vibration, but we're all different, right?
All different. Yeah.
Right.
I was going to say, well, we understand that there's multiple dimensions here. So there's 11 dimensions that create this universe. And in these dimensions, I believe there's life in every single one of these dimensions, with totally different laws of physics potentially in each one. And that we all are connected to this one universal consciousness that is imbued throughout all dimensions, and that we all, our energetic self, have purpose and missions throughout the entire universe. I may die as Billy Carson, or this avatar body may cease to work, but the energy that's enlightening this body, that's illuminating and animating it, is going to persist for eternity. And it's going to reshape and reform and come back anywhere in the known universe, or anywhere in known dimensions, and reactivate, and it's going to continue to live on and continue to work for whatever, hopefully for the greater good, continuously for eternity.
Just wrapping down the show, your work is reaching so many different people, different colors, different nationalities. And I truly see you as what I call a planetarian. You've transcended the race paradigm. You're not just an African American. You're planetarian. And that's phenomenal, because that's very hard to do. Because some people say, I'm a white guy, I'm a black guy, I'm Indian, I'm China. But when you transcend all of that, which the great masters were able to do, now you've entered nirvana. How was that whole process? Because like you said, you had peer pressure. Did you have a lot of peer pressure from people saying, hey, I want you just to stay an African-American male, and speak from that perspective of all of that? And how was that whole struggle for you?
It's been an amazing situation. Let me put it that way. When I first launched Forbidden Knowledge on Instagram, which was where it first launched in the end of 2011, I think the first post that I made was a Paracas skull, an elongated Paracas skull. And the second one was an underground base with a full-size Marine ship under it, right? So I just wanted to see how it was going to go. And eventually it caught on, and people, my face wasn't on the account, just the Eye of Horus, not my face. And for years, it was like that until around 2013 or 14, I realized that people are going to have to start knowing who I am, because there's a lot of inquiries from even now TV shows wanting to talk to me because of what I've been posting, which is like wild, right? And I was like, wow. And plus my plan to expose more knowledge, eventually they're going to know it's me. So one day I changed the Eye of Horus logo and put my face on the account. And to many people's dismay, I was a black guy. But not to white people's dismay, to be honest with you, it was to black people's dismay. They said that I hacked the account. There's no way I had this knowledge. This is probably owned by an Asian person. So there was this whole process of them having to adapt to me being the face of forbidden knowledge, which I understand. I'm not angry at them or pissed off at them. I understand that, it's all paradigms, it's all dogma, it's all belief structures and things like that that are in place inside of people's minds, why they responded and reacted that way. And as I continued on, people wanted me to be this 100%, black power guy. And I'm like, no, I'm not black power. I'm human power. I'm not black power, white power, Asian power, indigenous power. I'm everyone power. I'm here to enlighten the masses. 8 billion is the goal, not just a small percentage of people on the planet. I'm going to fight for human rights. I'm going to fight for inadequacies and wrongdoings and police brutality and racial discrepancies and all. I'm going to fight for all that. I'm going to expose it. But at the same time, I'm talking to the world. I'm talking to the world. And every single person, every single race, creed, color on this planet needs to hear what I have to say. And this wisdom that I can impart in each and every single one of those races and those creeds around the entire planet. So I made it a mission and a goal not to put myself in a box. A lot of people, they put themselves in boxes, and now they're in boxes. They want to get out, because I've had people talk to me about the box they're in, but they're stuck in that box now. They can't get out of the box, because if they get out of the box, they're going to lose everything that's already in the box. And so I didn't want to put myself in a boxed-in situation, because I'm outside the box. I'm an outside-of-the-box thinker. And I wanted to be able to be accessible to everyone and anyone, because I truly do believe in human power. I truly do believe in there's only one consciousness. When I say that, I'm not just speaking for energy, to waste energy. I'm speaking because I truly, really, in the bottom of my soul, believe that there's only one, and that everyone I'm talking to is actually a version of me. And so because of that, I'm talking to everyone.
Right. Terence McKenna said culture is not your friend. When I take a look around at the world with so many traditions, all of these things, I see you've been able to transcend culture and create your own culture, forbidden knowledge. And what you're doing is truly phenomenal. Once again, I want to respect your time, because I know you're extremely busy. And the chat is full. The live stream is full. Give people your information of where they can find you, what you have going on. Yeah. Please talk about that, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have the first ever Forbidden Conscious Awards coming up July 30th this month, in just a few short weeks, in Miami, Florida, at the Adrian Arts Center in Miami. The first ever award ceremony of its type for the conscious community, where we're giving away awards to 12 amazing people. We've actually added more awards than that now, some of the ones that we've voted in-house on. But we're giving away an amazing awards, black tie, red carpet event. Even the mainstream news is coming to see what in the world is going on down here. What is this guy doing? Who's getting these awards? And why are they getting this level of an event down in Miami? It's on the level of the Oscars. So it's going to be an amazing event. So if you can make it down, I'll send you some information on it. It's going to be a mind-blowing event that you've got to see. Yeah. We'll give you the VIP status.
Oh, thank you. I'm coming to Miami. Definitely. I'm coming.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We'll get you in the VIP room and everything. It'll be phenomenal. It's one of the most beautiful venues in the world. To me, it rivals the Sydney Opera House, and it's right there in Miami. It's a brand new facility. It's incredible. And then, of course, you can find me on forbiddenknowledge.com and Forbidden Knowledge on all social media platforms. And we do have the streaming TV network, Forbidden Knowledge TV. You can find it on the web at 4bk.tv or the iOS App Store, the Google Play Store, Roku, Apple TV. We just got approved for Samsung TVs now. So go to get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on your app store and stream thousands of shows, documentaries, movies, and content that most of it you can't just find on YouTube. So that's where I'm at, and hopefully everyone get a chance to come on down to Miami and meet me in person and walk on the red carpet and take some great photos.
Billy Carson, Mr. Billy Carson, I want to thank you so much for your empowering, insightful information. Like I say, I know you got 1,001 things to do, because when we talk about creating, the new earth, you got every single second, you got to maximize it. So I'm just so humbled and grateful that you've taken time out of your busy schedule just to dive deep. The chat room is full. The live stream is full. Very powerful show. Once again, thank you so much. I wish you well on your journey. We'll meet, definitely do it in person. But much love to you and your family. Once again, thank you so much for diving deep.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We had a great time.
Great time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.